Imagine for a moment an ancient wedding. There's a beautiful princess, a strong prince. They're both joyful. But at this wedding, at this event, there are two guests that could spell disaster for both kingdoms. Believe it or not, this little tale in Beowulf about this specific event is useful for us in our modern day, because I think it gives us insights, deep insights, into the current generational challenges and griefs we're having in the United States and in the West in general. Because guess what, guys? All of us are younger than some men and older than others. So how we deal with each other is going to spell either joy or grief for our future. Let's look at the story today. Let's look at our current situation and how dads can make a difference in that situation. This is Imago Dad. Welcome. So let's get into the tale. Beowulf returns home after defeating two monsters. And he's talking to his own king. And he mentions that King Hrothgar, the man he helped, has betrothed his daughter, Freawaru. Man, the subtitler are going to have fun with that one. So Freawaru has been betrothed to Ingeld of the Heathobars. And he particularly is doing this, Hrothgar is doing this, to try to bring peace to a nation that was to the two nations that were at war. He won the war. Now he's trying to make sure that they have peace and alliance in the future. Now, Beowulf is presenting this almost as a prophecy within the poem, because the poet knows that this was a historical event, but at the time Beowulf wouldn't. So for him, it's like, it shows his political savvy, shows that he's not just a strong man, he's also smart. And he then presents this tale as a warning about what might happen. Because while the two kings are getting their couples together, there are two warriors that show up. One of them is on the prince's side, and he is older, he remembers the battles, and he has held on to that grudge. The younger guy is with the princess, and he comes into his former enemy's kingdom, into their hall, and he's wearing the spoils of war that his father won. I hope you can see where that conflict starts. The older man looks and he sees the gold ring or the sword that once belonged to a friend of his. And he looks to the other men around him and he says, "That by right belonged to you. It should have been handed down to you." And yet, here's this young guy who didn't win it honestly. I got a car coming down the walking trail. That's weird. Anyway, there's this young guy who didn't win it honestly. And he's wearing it boastfully here in our court. Like, this is not an honest thing. He didn't earn it, and now he's bragging about it. Now, yeah, he's holding on to the grief. He's holding on to the grudge, which kind of goes against the plans his king has made. So he's not exactly being a loyal subject there either. But the younger guy, whether through pride or ignorance, is stirring up strife. Both of them are. Both of them are stirring up strife. The younger guy, whether he is just like, yeah, look what my dad did, I'm going to rub it in your face. Could be that, we don't really know. But that's the way it's perceived. Or it could just be, my father won this, I am proud of him. And me and my lack of consideration for the delicacy of the situation, I'm going to wear that into my former enemy's court. Either way, it causes problems. Let's look at how this applies now. We currently have a generational gap that is increasing in grievance and increasing in challenge that I think we need to deal with. We need to figure out ways to manage this, and I think dads can help. So here's what I'm hearing. I'm in a unique, weird situation in that I am smack dab in the middle of Gen X and Millennial. Like, it's kind of hard, depending on whose numbers you listen to know which one I am. So I'm right in the middle. And whether because of that or because of, for whatever reason, I end up in the middle of a lot of conversations, whether online or in person, between boomers and older Gen Xers getting into conflict with kind of later millennials and Gen Z as they're entering the workforce and entering adulthood. And they end up both being upset with each other and both talking past each other. There's just offenses, whether real or perceived, that they can't get past. So here's what I'm hearing. I'm going to present their cases so that hopefully all of us can see, oh, there's some genuine grievance here, potentially, but it's a bit overblown. And hopefully we can see where the gum is in the works. The older guys, their claim or their beef with the younger generation is that they are, first off, kind of entitled. Like, they think that they can jump into a situation and everything will be given to them. They will just get into an organization and climb the ranks faster than anybody ever has before, whether or not they have the skill to do that. There is then that leads to what they see as laziness. If you feel like you deserve it, then you're not willing to work for it. And then they see it as pride and disrespect. Because here's what the older guys are remembering. They're remembering all of the hard work that they had to put in to get where they are. And they're remembering all of the struggle and challenge with their elders to earn their position and earn what they've collected. So they're in the position of a guy like Hrothgar, like a king, where they've earned respect, they've earned wealth over a period of decades, and they had to fight for every little bit. They found ways that worked. And so now they're seeing these guys, younger guys, coming in with an attitude of, well, I know what to do, when they have no experience, with the expectation that they're going to rise up the ranks and be in charge when they haven't earned it. And you can hopefully see how that feels like a threat, or certainly feels like an offensive thing, because there isn't any outward respect for the experience and the expertise and the tough knocks that led to wisdom. On the other side, the younger guys, they're looking at a different world, and they basically argue and complain about the older generation being stuck in the past, a past that arguably doesn't exist anymore in a lot of ways. And so because they're stuck in that past, they see the older generation as not listening. They'll see genuine problems, and the older generation won't even hear the complaint. And that leads to then the experience or the perceived idea that the older guys are hoarding all of the opportunity. They're shutting the doors on the younger guys, and they're not even giving them a chance. Like I said, they see a world that's changing. They see dangers that are kind of new, that the older generation doesn't seem to notice because they've got a system that has worked for a long time. I think both sides, if you go online especially, and if you listen to talking heads, have enough examples that they can point to that it allows them to believe that the stereotype is true. It reinforces the stereotype because they can point, oh, look at these guys on TikTok and all the crazy things they're saying, and that nobody ever would have talked like that when I was a kid. And then you look at, the older boomers going, these kids are all lazy and disrespectful, and it sounds like old person talk. So both of them can find examples and then broad brush each other with the worst stereotype of the batch. I want to look at the expectation in Beowulf, because in addition to this little story of Ingeld and Freawaru, we have a couple of examples of good kings, and we have one example, a warning of a bad king. The expectation within that culture was that kings received the wealth of their spoils, right? They received, taxes for sure, but also if they went to war, they received the spoils. They deserved it. They led. And they were usually an older generation. Because of that, the expectation was that they would reward the loyalty and efforts and courage of their warriors. So the warriors were paying in loyalty and courage and service, and the kings were paying in gold and patronage. There was respect from the warriors for the king, but the king's level of respect for the warriors was showed in how generous he could be. So there was this mutuality to this relationship that I do think we've kind of lost. There's a natural hierarchy between generations that Beowulf just assumes. And the Bible does too, let's be honest. The natural hierarchy is you've gone through experiences, you've tried things that the younger generation hasn't tried, so which means you have both the wisdom of success and the wisdom of failure. And that experience is worthy of respect, let alone just a natural, hey, you've survived for a while. Let's maybe try to learn from you and respect that you are older than us. And so you, because of being older by itself, are worthy of respect and some level of honor. Now, are there examples of foolish old men? Absolutely. But we're talking in general. Meanwhile, the Bible also has it's not explicit, but it is this implied thing that the older guys need the younger guys. They still need them to work and fight. As the older guys' strength fails, they become the brains and the younger guys become the brawn. Naturally, much the way Beowulf's culture was set up. So there's this natural hierarchy that we should put in place, that we expect, but at the same time in the Bible, we see like Paul telling Timothy not to let people disrespect him because he's young, but to be the example of goodness and honor and righteousness. So we shouldn't necessarily look down on younger guys disrespectfully, although we can acknowledge they may not have had the experience that leads to the same wisdom. But we can say, hey, as far as you're right, we will respect you. You kind of have to earn your place. The Bible acknowledges that. Then within Beowulf, there is a structural hierarchy, a cultural, political hierarchy of the king and the warriors, like we described. That one is more likely to change because it's not based in just how humanity acts and who we are as people, as God made us. So the natural one is something we all kind of have to work with, whereas the structural one might change. I think that's where we're at. I think we're in the middle of such big cultural changes that the structures are being rattled. Things that used to work may not work with the rapid pace of change because of technology and politics, let's be honest. It's not that we haven't been in similar situations before, but we've forgotten. So how do we fix this? How can dads help fix this? I want to focus on little kids and adult kids, if you've got those. Or teens, older teens. If you've got little kids, man, you've got a lot of opportunity to impress in them, to be the types of men, especially, who can learn well from those who are older than them. But you also have the opportunity to be the type of older person who is respectful, within reason. Like, yeah, you don't let them disrespect you, but you don't have to lord it over them, is what I'm saying. So you listen and you guide with honor and wisdom and gentleness, considering their age and their inexperience. And you can train them what to look for in a good mentor or a good boss down the road. You don't want to train them in just, hey, dad said it, so it goes, with no good reasons. You don't want to train them in your proclivities that have nothing to do with morality, like there's one right way to load the dishwasher, and anything else is stupid and wrong and ignorant. Like, that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. There may be a better way, but you can coach and let them try it out and experience the little bit of failure that gives them wisdom, because that's how we learn. If you've got older adult kids who are starting in the workforce, that's where you can be, hopefully, the trusted wise one to guide them through that relationship. If their boss is just being a jerk, maybe you can be the one to help them get through that challenge in a wise way. If they've got great ideas and the boss won't listen, maybe you can help them come up with a way to communicate those ideas so that the boss might actually listen. You can be the guide and the counselor rather than the guy. Now, if you are the boss and you've got a younger guy like that, or if you're the younger guy trying to talk to the boss, that's where we both need humility. I think that's the main thing. If both sides can listen with humility, then we might actually have a chance at finding solutions to these things. Somebody at some point has to overlook the offense of either holding on to the past or being prideful and arrogant. If you're the older guy, listen to their ideas and maybe explain whether or not that's been tried before. And if they're decent ideas, maybe give them a little slack to actually try it, because it might prove useful for you in the future. Be the patron. Be the guy who is generous with the warriors and expects them to go out and do the hard work, because you're the older one. You're the brains in the situation. Let them be the brawn. If you're the younger guy, listen respectfully to the experience of the older guys and make sure that you're not just jumping to the conclusions that they're all idiots. But then you actually have to prove yourself. That's a big deal. Don't expect to just be listened to and respected and rise in the ranks because you're there and you have good ideas. You actually got to prove it. And that takes time. Be patient. Both sides. Humility, patience, and being willing to overlook those things that you might find odd or unusual or cringy about each other. That's the only way we get through this. And dads have a way that they can talk to the little kids and the older kids to help them see how to work together for everybody's benefit, for everybody's future, so that our kingdom does not fall. John Eldredge talks about masculinity a lot from a Christian perspective, and he talks about young men being warriors and serving kings, and that we've had a lot of bad kings in our culture for a long time. We need to fix that. And one of the ways we can fix that is if the kings and the warriors start to work together again with a natural hierarchy. And so if you find young men who have great ideas, man, be a patron. Help them to grow, help them to find wise solutions, invest in their businesses or their companies, help them invest in their careers. Not because necessarily it'll benefit you financially, but because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to save our country and to save our civilization, to pass down what has been passed down to us, not just financially, but in wisdom and culture and all of those things. So that's why we're looking at Beowulf. We're going to be switching here very soon. I am working on a Sunday school series on the biblical ideas in America's founding. And so I might be passing along some of the ideas from that and the sermons I'm reading from the Revolutionary era and how those things apply to our country and our culture. I'm Brandon Wilborn. I'm a youth pastor, and I got a degree in theology and all that kind of stuff, but I'm also a writer, and this is what we're doing here. If you like talking about faith and fiction and fatherhood through a biblical and faithful lens, then I hope you'll join me. This is Imago Dad, and let's do something different than our fathers have done so that we can actually have a better future.